Good evening, everybody. Rev.Dave Roach again, here uploading another video in our sermon series. I want to talk to you this evening about something that has come up that's troubling me greatly in the news of late. Two issues, really. One is this scandal that has just broke. About 300 Roman Catholic priests molesting over 1,000 children from 1970 until present day. And this is in one state, people. In the state of Pennsylvania. The news just broke recently. And if I submit to you that if this has occurred in one state, my God, what has happened over the entire nation? You see, Lucifer would love to infiltrate, as he does with all organizations, infiltrate them, whether it be schools, the government, churches, and has infiltrated the Catholic Church in an attempt to not only destroy it, but pervert it. And that is exactly what has happened with the Church of Rome. And I could get into a whole message on just the Church of Rome in Revelation 17. Basically, in a nutshell, that the Church of Rome is considered a harlot. You can look at Revelation 17 yourself. It is a perfect description of the Roman Catholic Church. And it is my belief that it is out of that system, out of that religious system, that the false prophet will arise. But that is neither here nor there, and has no relevance over the current situation. It is dealing with the perversion of and the usurping of all that is good in the name of God. These 1,000 victims, brothers and sisters, in one state, the great state of Pennsylvania. That is a number that it's hard to wrap your head around. 300 priests, 1,000 victims. Now, you want to Google the story, you can, and you can look at some of the disturbing crimes that have been committed, and it's absolutely appalling. Now, what would cause that organization to go that way? Well, you can look in the Catholic Church yourself and see all kinds of Babylonianism and idolatry and idol worship. And any organization that allows that is bound and destined to have debauchery associated with it. There's no other way around it. Another reason for this behavior amongst these priests is they deny these priests to marry. The Bible clearly says that is a doctrine of a devil. It says forbidding to marry. And of course, if you deny a male the God-placed desires and urges sexually inside of their belief system, then they are going to explore other avenues. You see, they cannot have a legitimate relationship, physical relationship with a female, with a woman, because they are prohibited from doing so. So quite naturally, as the process of time starts and progresses, they turn to other more animalistic desires and start predating on those who cannot defend themselves, because they're easily to hide that relationship. It's easy to conceal it. And that is a trick of the devil. That is a very powerful tool he has of deception. He wants to keep things in the dark. He wants to keep things covered up, to where if you have a legitimate relationship and marriage with the opposite sex in the plain view of the public, that is completely out in the open and brought into the light, if you will. So that is one reason behind it. The other reason behind it is because, quite simply, that church, and I use that term loosely, is devoted to, unbeknownst to them, to the rank and file members of the church, or some of even the rank and file ministers or priests, if you will, they are serving Lucifer. They are enacting the Babylonian priesthood, if you will. All you have to do is go to a Roman Catholic service and look around, and you will see the blatant idol worship, the blatant disregard for all things that are godly. And they will have a facade to make it look holy, when in fact it is not. It is a sleight of hand. It's a magic trick, if you will. And it has duped many a soul into believing that, hey, I'm Catholic, I'm as devout Christian as you can get, when in fact you're not even allowed to read a Bible for yourself. So it's a very troubling issue, brothers and sisters. It's very, very troubling. And I encourage everyone who watches my channel and watches these sermons to check it out for yourself. Just Google Catholic priest molestation in Pennsylvania, and the article's going to jump right up. It was in the New York Times, of all things. So is Lucifer busy in this season? Absolutely. He's trying to destroy and infiltrate every aspect of life. And starting with the church. And you can trust and believe, brothers and sisters, the church, and I had a minister tell me this today, will be judged first. He said, God said, let my judgment begin first at the house of God, because that is the place that deserves to be judged first. The other issue that is in the news the last few days, last 5 to 6 days, I believe it is, in Arkansas. Arkansas, of all places, deep south. They have now erected on the courthouse steps, the Capitol building steps, excuse me, the statue of what is Baphomet. And some of you are watching me, you know what that is. You know what that statue is. You know what the symbology is behind it. But for those of you who don't, I'll give you a brief rundown. The symbol of Baphomet, you can Google this for yourself and just Google the images of it. It is a hermaphrodite goat statue with wings sitting on a throne with an upside down pentagram on the top of that throne, with 2 fingers pointing toward heaven and 2 fingers pointing to the ground. And this hermaphrodite goat has breasts like a woman and as the male genitalia. And it is a representation in the satanic temple of Lucifer. And this thing has been erected now, and it's not just Arkansas. It has been erected in several major cities all over this land, with little to no pushback from anybody. Whereas the 10 Commandments have been completely stripped from the courthouse walls, from all public buildings, from the schools. In fact, we've asked God to leave every major political and governmental institution that we have. Yes, the infiltration is just about complete, brothers and sisters. I mean, every aspect of your life, Satan has wormed his filthy little head into. Hollywood. Can you argue that? He by nature or by de facto has worked his way into schools by just removing God. Anything you remove God from creates a vacuum. Do you not understand that? If you ask God to leave the school system, for example. That leaves a power vacuum, and something is going to occupy that space. You can call it whatever you want: Scientology, communism, socialism, liberalism, all the other isms. If you ask God to leave, something will take his place, and God is not going to stay where he's not wanted. And we wonder why. That schools now have metal detectors and drug-sniffing dogs, and you have to have a school resource officer. You have to have a police officer in the school to monitor the behavior of the students. Lord, in my day, the worst thing that you could imagine have happened was maybe somebody got caught smoking behind a gym, or there was gum under the seats. Now you got to worry about crack cocaine, heroin, the child rape, bullying, any number of problems or ills of society. You can properly judge society by its school system and by its prison systems. And furthermore, showing the evidence that anytime you ask God to leave something, he's going to go. But there's taking it a step further. Not only are you asking God to leave Capitol Hall, asking God to leave the school system, but now people are blatantly replacing that God with a false God. Erecting a statue that directly is an idol to Lucifer, with little to no pushback. And if there is pushback, they're shouted down. And it's an equality issue. If you put up a nativity scene, oh, you have to put up the symbol of Baphomet. You have to put up the Wiccan symbol. You have to put up a Quran. You have to do this, because everybody's got to be equal rights, you see. Even though it's destroying the very fabric of what made this nation great, which made our communities great. Yeah, Google that statue, brothers and sisters, and look at that thing. That thing is creepy. A transgendered goat statue. It's just freaky. It's a bunch of freaks getting out, and they're the loudest ones, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, don't it? And so we will bend over backwards to appease these people, to appease this trash, turning loose every form of demonic debauchery and sorcery and witchcraft upon our communities. Well, there's no doubt about that. In the last couple of minutes, I'll tell you, just take a brief evaluation and look at these organizations I'm going to list and say, if I was Lucifer, what would I attempt to take over? And you ask yourself, has he done it? Or has he came mighty close to locking in power? You think about this list: the church, politics, Hollywood, economic system, school system, colleges, the household. Is it starting to make sense to you? Is there any one of those organizations or those locations to where he does not have a grip? I submit you know the answer to that question. The answer is unequivocally no. So are we in the last times? Absolutely. The Bible says that in the last days they'll call evil good and good evil, and that is exactly where we find ourselves, brothers and sisters. What can we do about it? Control your own house. Do things godly. Examine things for what they are and sigh and cry against it. And God said, I will seal you in the forehead, those who have cried and sighed against the abomination of the land. Till the next time, God keep you and bless you. Love you in the Lord.